Burt Lancaster names the gay actors of old Hollywood he dated in secret. Burt Lancaster was born Burton Stephen Lancaster on November 2, 1913, in New York City. Lancaster grew up in a working-class family and first wanted to be a circus performer and athlete. He was really good at doing flips and stunts, which helped him later when he became a movie star. His circus training was not just something he did when he was young. It was a big part of what made him special as an actor. He could do his own dangerous stunts in movies, which most actors couldn't do back then. Lancaster started acting in movies in the 1940s when movie makers noticed how handsome and strong he was. His big break came in 1946 with a movie called The Killers, where he played a boxer who gets in trouble. This movie made him famous and showed everyone that he was a serious actor who could play tough, complicated characters. Lancaster was different from other actors because he could be both tough and gentle at the same time. He could act in all kinds of movies: crime stories, cowboy movies, big adventure films, and movies about important social problems. One thing that made Lancaster special was that he wasn't afraid to go against what Hollywood usually did. In the 1950s, he started his own movie company with two other men named Harold Hecht and James Hill. They called it Hecht Hill Lancaster. This was a big deal because it meant Lancaster could choose what movies to make instead of just doing what the big movie studios told him to do. He wanted to make movies that meant something and talked about important topics. Some of the movies his company made included Marty in 1955, which won the biggest award a movie can get, and Separate Tables in 1958, which was about how people deal with complicated feelings. Throughout his career, Lancaster won many awards and people thought he was a great actor. He won 2 Oscar awards, which are the most important prizes an actor can get. His first Oscar was for playing a man who used to be in prison and was trying to start a new life in a movie called Elmer Gantry in 1960. His acting in this movie was amazing. He could be charming and scary at the same time, which showed how talented he was. Later, he won another Oscar for playing a prisoner who became famous for taking care of birds in Birdman of Alcatraz in 1962. These movies showed that Lancaster was really good at playing people who had done bad things, but were trying to be better. Lancaster wasn't just a good actor, he also cared about making the world a better place. He spoke up for civil rights, which means he wanted all people to be treated fairly no matter what color their skin was. During a time when many Hollywood stars were scared to talk about politics, Lancaster was brave enough to speak out against racism and unfairness. He supported unions, which are groups that help protect workers, and he always tried to help people who were being treated badly. People respected him not just because he was a good actor, but because he was a good person. Lancaster kept making movies well into the 1970s and 1980s, always trying new and challenging roles. Some of his later movies included The Swimmer in 1968, which was a strange and interesting movie that some people still love today, and Atlantic City in 1980, which showed he could play older characters really well and got him nominated for another Oscar. Even when Hollywood changed a lot over the years, Lancaster kept finding ways to stay important and keep making good movies. In his personal life, Lancaster was married 3 times and had 5 children. His relationships were complicated, just like many of the characters he played in movies. His first wife was June Ernst, who was also a circus performer like he had been. June came from a family of circus people. Her mother was famous for doing dangerous tricks high up in the air. June was really good at trapeze, which is swinging on ropes high above the ground. When Burt married June, he joined her circus family and got even better at doing acrobatic tricks. This training helped him a lot later when he did stunts in movies. But even though they both loved the circus, their marriage didn't work out. They separated in the late 1930s, though nobody is exactly sure when they got divorced. Some people say 1940, others say it might have been as late as 1946. His second marriage was to a woman named Norma Anderson. They met in a very interesting way during World War II. Norma was working as a secretary, but she ended up filling in for a sick actress in a show that was supposed to entertain American soldiers in Italy. When she was going from the airport to town, she saw Burt Lancaster in a crowd and thought he was very handsome. She asked an officer, "Who is that good-looking man, and is he married?" The officer set them up on a date that same night, and they fell in love. They got married in 1946. Norma was very interested in politics and helping people. Their house had a whole room full of machines for printing flyers and sending out mail to support causes she believed in. She was part of a group called the League of Women Voters, which helped teach women about voting and politics. She was also a member of the NAACP, which worked to get equal rights for black people. Bert and Norma both cared a lot about civil rights. They even held a party at their house to raise money for Martin Luther King, Jr., before his famous March on Washington in 1963. Together, Bert and Norma had 5 children. Their son Bill became an actor and writer like his father. Their other children were James, Susan, Joanna, who became a movie producer, and Sigel, pronounced like Sheila. Even though they seemed like a happy family who cared about important causes, their marriage had problems. Bert's job as an actor was very demanding and stressful, and this put strain on their relationship. They separated in 1966 and got divorced in 1969. While his second marriage was falling apart, Bert started dating Jackie Bone, who was a hairdresser who worked on movie sets. She worked on one of his movies called The Professionals. Their relationship was very intense and sometimes dramatic. There's a famous story about Jackie getting so angry at a dinner party that she broke a wine bottle over Bert's head in front of important movie people like director Sidney Pollack and actor Peter Falk. Their relationship was passionate but often stormy. It ended when Jackie had a religious experience and became very focused on her faith. Bert felt like they couldn't understand each other anymore because they believed different things about religion and life. Bert's third and final marriage was to Susan Martin in September 1990. This marriage was very different from his earlier ones. It was quieter and more private. They stayed married until Bert died in 1994. Susan was with him during his last years when he was dealing with health problems and thinking about his long career in movies. But there was another side to Burt Lancaster's life that almost nobody knew about while he was alive. In his later years, when he was old and thinking about his past, Bert told some close friends about secret relationships he had with men during his career. This was shocking, because in those days, if people found out an actor was gay or had relationships with men, it could end their career completely. Being gay was not accepted in Hollywood, or most of society back then. One of the most famous actors Bert said he had a relationship with was Cary Grant. Cary Grant was one of the most elegant and charming actors of all time. Bert met him at a Hollywood party in the late 1940s when they were both already movie stars. Cary Grant had lived with another actor named Randolph Scott for many years, and many people later thought they were more than just friends. But Cary was very careful to keep up the image that he was interested in women. Bert said their relationship was exciting but also scary because they had to be so careful that nobody found out. They would spend secret weekends together at beach houses where nobody could see them. But Cary was so afraid of being discovered that their relationship didn't last long. He was too worried about what would happen to his career if anyone found out. Perhaps the strangest relationship Bert claimed to have was with J. Edgar Hoover, who was the head of the FBI for many years. Hoover wasn't an actor, but he had a lot of power in Hollywood because he could control how movies showed police and law enforcement. Hoover never got married and was often rumored to have a special relationship with his assistant, Clyde Tolson. Bert said he met Hoover at a fancy charity event in Washington, D.C. Their relationship wasn't romantic in the usual way, but it was full of secrets and power games. Bert said Hoover was a man who desperately wanted someone to care about him, but was terrified of letting anyone get too close. This relationship gave Bert a look into the mind of one of the most mysterious and powerful men in America. Rock Hudson was another famous actor Bert said he had a relationship with. Rock Hudson was tall, handsome, and seemed like the perfect leading man in movies. They met on a movie set in the early 1950s when Rock was becoming really famous. Rock lived in constant fear that people would find that he was gay. This fear turned out to be justified. After he died from AIDS in 1985, the whole world learned the truth he had hidden his entire life. Bert remembered Rock as a gentle person who had the body of a strong warrior, but just wanted to be loved. They would take long car trips through the desert where they could be themselves without worrying about photographers following them. Bert respected Rock's need to keep their relationship secret, and eventually their relationship faded away, not because they stopped caring about each other, but because it was impossible to have a real relationship when they had to hide all the time. One of the most surprising names Bert mentioned was Ricky Nelson. the young singer and actor from the TV show The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet. Ricky was almost 20 years younger than Burt, and he had an image as a clean-cut, all-American teenager. According to Burt, they had a brief relationship in the early 1960s, when Burt was already a well-established star, and Ricky was trying to grow up from being a child performer into an adult entertainer. The relationship was short, but meant a lot to Ricky, who saw Burt as both a teacher and a protector. But Burt realized that the age difference and power difference between them wasn't fair to Ricky, so he ended it gently. He wanted Ricky to have the chance to figure out who he was on his own. Burt always remembered Ricky fondly, saying he was like the boy who sang like a breeze and kissed with the hunger of someone who had never been allowed to want. Finally, there was Marlon Brando, who might have been the most complicated and talented actor Burt ever knew. Brando was famous for being rebellious and doing whatever he wanted, which was very different from Burt's more controlled personality. They met at a political event in Hollywood in the late 1950s, and the attraction between them was immediate and intense. Brando was known for having relationships with both men and women and for not caring what society thought about it. He attracted Burt with smart conversations, challenging arguments, and a powerful physical presence that was impossible to ignore. Their relationship was like a volcano, explosive and passionate. They would compete with each other and try to win emotional and physical battles. Burt said Brando was the only man I ever met who could make me feel completely undone just by looking at me. Their on and off relationship lasted for several years, but eventually ended because keeping it secret was too hard, and their strong personalities clashed too much. All of these relationships were completely hidden from the public. They painted a very different picture of Burt Lancaster than what people saw in movies and magazines. Instead of just being the tough, masculine hero he played on screen, he was a man who had loved deeply, sometimes recklessly, and always in silence. When he talked about these relationships late in his life, he wasn't trying to shock people or get attention. Instead, he was trying to free himself from decades of having to pretend, protect secrets, and hide a truth that was just as much a part of who he was as any movie role he ever played. Burt Lancaster died in his apartment in Century City, Los Angeles, on October 20th, 1994, at 4:50 in the morning after having his third heart attack. He was 80 years old. His body was cremated, which means it was burned instead of buried, and his ashes were scattered under a big oak tree in Westwood Memorial Park in California. There's a small square plaque in the ground that says Burt Lancaster 1913-1994 to mark the spot. Just like he wanted, there was no funeral or memorial service. Even in death, Burt Lancaster kept things simple and private, just like he had tried to keep his secret relationships private during his life.